Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Conor Monk from the National Literacy Trust, and we're so pleased to be working with our friends at World Book Day to bring you a series of digital events that you watch live today or throughout the week. We're joined today by two contributors to the World Book Day title, Being an Ally, real talk about showing up, screwing up, and trying again. Natalie and Naomi Evans. Hi, guys. How's it going?
Hello. Hi.
I will do a little bit of an introduction about you both, if that's all right. So, Naomi and Natalie are founders of the anti-racism platform Everyday Racism, which has over 180,000 followers on Instagram. They share stories from BIPOC, meaning Black, Indigenous, people of colour, and educational posts focusing on how to be anti-racist, promote anti-racism sessions, working with the likes of Bupa, Lloyds Bank, and write articles for Red, Grazia, and more. Naomi and Natalie are committed to empowering people to make a difference in the world. They're natural communicators who believe education and action is the fundamental route to stopping social justice. Their aim is to help dismantle systemic racism by empowering BIPOC and teaching white folk how to use their privilege for change. And we are so happy to have you here. Thank you so much both for joining us. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having us. We're excited.
Amazing. And so you've written a contribution for the World Book Day title. Could you tell us a little bit more about it and perhaps share maybe even we could tempt you to read a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've contributed to the Being an Ally book, which we were really excited to do. And the title of our essay was Why Didn't Anyone Else Say Anything? And it really was, this incident was the catalyst for us starting our Instagram account. So maybe I'll just share a little extract from it with you, and then we can talk a bit more about that.
Yes, please.
We have to repent in this generation, not merely for the hateful words and actions of the bad people, but for the appalling silence of the good people. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., 1963. It was late October, and I was at the train station in London, travelling back to my small hometown by the sea. It was a sunny Friday afternoon, but the air was cold enough to see the condensation from my mouth when I breathed out. I had just finished a full day of work that involved a lot of meetings, coffee, and dull conversation, so I was very tired and ready for the weekend. I stood on the platform in my thick coat and a scarf, wishing I had driven that day. The clock turned 3:25 and two bright circle lights entered through the tunnel. Finally, I thought. I waited for the passengers to get off before I stepped on the train and found two single seats available. Then I put in my headphones, tilted my head on the glass window next to me, and closed my eyes while the train sped off to the next stop. As my podcast played, I heard a faint announcement in the background as the train slowed down at the next stop. When I opened my eyes, I saw two white men, both wearing black coats, jeans, and carrying a supermarket bag, which I imagine had the remaining cans of beer that they were holding in their hands. They were speaking like they were in a nightclub, where you have to shout over the music to hold a conversation. Other passengers noticeably shuffled their bodies and moved to attention. Ears pricked up, and some people looked up and away quickly while others rolled their eyes to show their disapproval at the lack of train etiquette. All I wanted was a quiet journey home. I hoped they wouldn't be on the train for much longer. As I scanned the carriage once again, I noticed something that wasn't very unusual to me. Everyone else was white. I'm mixed race. My dad is Black Jamaican and my mum is white British, so I have brown skin along with big curly afro hair. I grew up in a very white area in Kent, where most of my life I was the only person, apart from my two sisters, that looked like me. The two men were 2 seats away from me, and I could see them between the gap in the seats and the reflection of a man in the black jacket still clutching his beer in the train window. Once they sat down, I closed my eyes again, leaned back on the glass window and tried to nap once more. The nap didn't last very long. I was interrupted by the booming voice of the conductor asking for tickets. I took my headphones out and pulled out my train ticket ready for when he approached. The train conductor was a black man. It's not unusual for me to notice people's race. Even though my town has become more diverse and multicultural, I'm still surprised when I see a black person in the area. I smiled and passed over my train ticket, and he gave me a nod, and I nodded back. This is very normal in the black community. It's like an acknowledgement, a code. I see you. I understand. I get what it's like to be black in this world. I watched him walk down the carriage, asking the other passengers for their ticket. And I looked at the two loud drunk men, and in my gut, I knew not to put my headphones back in. You see, when you're used to being the minority in the room, you tend to pick up on certain things when in public spaces. You know when situations feel unsafe or when people are hostile towards you, and you sense when not to trust a person. It's an instinct, and it's one I've gotten very used to over the years. The train conductor walked over to the two drunk men and said, "Tickets, please." There was silence, so he repeated, "Tickets, please." Again, silence. I stared at the man with the supermarket bag in between the train seats, snickering to his friend. The conductor repeated himself again, but this time his tone was agitated and short. Finally, the man with the supermarket bag responded without looking up. "We're getting off at the next stop, mate." The train conductor replied, "That's not how it works. It doesn't matter if you're getting off at the next stop. You still need a ticket before getting on the train." This went back and forth for about 30 seconds, and the conversation between them was getting much louder. At this point, more and more people started to pay attention, and my instincts were right. After the train conductor explained that they would need a ticket in order to continue the journey, the man with the supermarket bag replied, "Did you get an effing passport to get into the country?" It was at that point my ears pricked up like a cat when they hear it's time for a bath. I scrambled around in my pocket, got out my phone and pressed record. This was my second step of being an ally. You see, step one was realizing that this was not a safe space for the conductor. Being an ally means anticipating when someone may need support. It's about understanding the power dynamics within a room.
Incredible, thank you. And so powerful as well. I'd like to go into the steps of allyship a little bit more. Would you be able to tell us kind of a little bit more about that? What are the steps that me and the audience can be taking a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of define what we mean by the term ally. I think it's something that has been mentioned quite a lot over the last few years, and it feels like it's quite a new term. Natalie, how would you define being an ally?
I think being an ally is all about how we stand up for other people and how we support other people. So it's all about kind of just being that, like I say, like a support, but being someone that people can rely on as well. And anyone can be an ally, and anyone can need an ally as well. So it's kind of being able to say, okay, well, maybe I don't experience things that other people experience, whether it's things like racism, which we're talking about in the story. Maybe it's things like ableism. So people who have disabilities might experience ableism, homophobia, sexism, different things. And maybe it's something that we don't always necessarily experience, but we can support other communities when they do experience that. And that looks like a range of different things. So it can be active, but it can also be things like just saying that I'm there for someone, or sticking up for someone when maybe someone's being bullied, or, you know, someone's being horrible to someone else. It can also be really active ways of signing petitions, things like protests and going out and being and saying, you know, like, I stand with you. Obviously things like this needs to be in a safe environment as well. Some of these ways, like signing petitions stuff, might not be something that you can do as a young person, but when you're older, that's might be something you can do. So it looks like lots of different ways. Obviously in the story that I just shared, my way of being an ally was standing up for that person, but also it was recording the situation so that I had evidence to be able to give to the police. You know, that was my way of showing my allyship in those moments.
I think as well, we can't be an ally if we don't understand some of the needs of those groups that we want to support. So actually, one of the first steps in terms of allyship is being educated in those areas that we might not understand. So if, for example, we're somebody who isn't part of the queer community, for example, then it's important that we learn and listen to people's experiences so that we understand the kinds of discrimination and prejudice they might face, so that in the first instance, we're not somebody that does any of those things that are harmful or offensive. And also, if we don't learn from other people, we're not going to recognize when those harmful things are taking place. So being an ally is about spending time learning about other people and people who are not like us necessarily, and people that perhaps we don't necessarily spend lots of time with or might not be part of our friendship group, but actually wanting to be a supportive and decent human being means finding out about other people, other people's experiences, cultures, and having an understanding so that we can be sensitive and supportive.
Thank you. And that's come through in your book and your contribution as well. How did you find the experience of writing the book? Was it the first time that you've written for a younger audience?
Yeah, this was the first time. So when we were approached to write the essay, we were kind of, at first we were a bit unsure as to what to write, and I guess not sure if this story was suitable as well, because we were kind of like, is this okay? But actually realizing this needs to be, people need to hear the story. But yeah, writing it was a really interesting process, because obviously there's two of us, we're sisters. So actually writing something together was really interesting, and how we do that and who writes what and whose voice comes in where. But I think we managed to kind of do that quite well, in me sharing my side of the story, then you coming in on your side of the story.
And we after we wrote this, we then wrote a book together called The Mixed Race Experience, which is all about what it's like to grow up with multiracial identities. But we came into writing a lot later on in life, so that wasn't our profession. Natalie had always been a youth worker and an events manager. I'm a teacher, and it wasn't until more recently that we'd started to write. So I think kind of what's exciting for us is that you can actually pick up writing a lot later on in life. It doesn't need to be something that you've been accomplished at from a very early age. And so I think that's what's been really nice about our experience of writing.
And also for me personally, I'm dyslexic, and I only found out that I was dyslexic when I was later on in life. So writing for me at school was not my friend. Like and I didn't know at the time why it was so difficult for me, and obviously now I know I can label that, but never did I think that younger me would be saying, you know, sitting here saying, yeah, I've written an essay of a book and written a whole book. So it just goes to show that really, you know, if you really put your mind to things and you really are passionate about things, it is possible.
You talked about working together. Was it straightforward? Did you, was it straightforward working together? Did you enjoy it? Could you tell us a little bit more about that experience as well? Because if I was trying to write with my sister, there would be all kinds of ideas. And I think some of the young people who are on the call as well, some of the shared examples of it can be a tricky thing to figure out.
Yeah, I think when we were younger, we didn't get on as much. No. I'm the older sister. But as we've got older, we've definitely got closer and we work together. So yeah, I think the writing has been a bit of a journey just in terms of us understanding what our voice is. But I think we both have a shared message that we want to bring, and we have an alignment that way. So yeah, it's been a real strength, us being sisters and being friends and working together. So I feel really lucky that we get to do that.
Yeah, and I think we both bring different dynamics to the table as well. We're very different, and we've got obviously things that are very similar, but I think it's good that we have our own kind of unique style, because then I think it makes it more interesting when we bring it together, and then it's kind of different voices and different ways that we write and different experiences that we write about as well. And I think then it keeps it very different and not necessarily consistent all the time, but I think that's good when it kind of comes together.
Definitely, it strengthens the writing, being able to work with other people sometimes as well. Fabulous. We have some questions from young people who've been sent over. Is it all right if we go into a couple of those?
Yeah, of course.
Awesome. So James from Doncaster has asked, where to start being an ally? We've touched on that a little bit. Is there any more that you want to go into as kind of the first part, the first steps?
Yeah, so I think, like I said, step one is definitely being open to learning about other people and other people's experiences, not being closed-minded to what you think people are like or people should be like. And I know for myself, like, we're so lucky in terms of having access to information, like incredible podcasts and television documentaries and books, of course, and books and literature. Even over the last 2-3 years, we are seeing so many more voices come to the forefront. And even the books that students are studying now, there are more voices from different types of people. So I think opening our minds up to that is really, really important. And then I think the second thing is about accepting that we're never going to be the perfect ally. That doesn't exist. There's not one route that we can do. I think the main thing to remember is it's about when we see things that we know are not okay, when we see things that are said that are harmful to other people, or whether that's physically or verbally, that it's really important that we stand up for other people and we grow in the confidence to say, actually, that's not okay. And it doesn't have to be really confrontational. It doesn't have to be a big argument. It doesn't need to lead to that. So it's about finding the ways that we can disrupt and interrupt those things that are happening to protect the person that maybe is vulnerable or marginalized. And that's what I mean when I talk about power dynamics in the room. So it's looking around and thinking, who here is underrepresented? Who here is in the majority? And who here might need support? And I think, that support can be done in many different ways, but it's about looking around and preempting. And I think that that's a really important part of being an ally. A bit like we were saying in the essay when Natalie was on the train and she was like, okay, there's something going on here, but a lot of those people on the train just ignored it and went back to reading or listening to their headphones. But Natalie was like, no, I need to step in here, even though it was scary and not comfortable, but it was the right thing to do. And we need to see more of that.
Yeah, I think as well, some practical ways of maybe figuring out how you can be an ally and what that looks like is thinking about some of the skills that you might have in life that you're good at, and how you can use that to be kind to others as well. Because being an ally is about that. It's about looking after other people, supporting them, but also just being a kind person. And so ways you could do that is think about, what are your strengths in life? So are you a good cook? Do you like baking? Could you make someone some muffins or some cakes just to brighten up their day? You know, just something really simple, who maybe someone's having a really bad time and you can do that. You know, are you a good listener? Do you like listening to people? Could someone just talk to you and just tell you that they're having their issues? And are you someone that can listen, you know?
Or are you good at organizing things? Are you really practical? Are you good at, like, can you arrange events to raise funds for things or to promote things? So yeah, I totally agree with that. Like, using your strengths to support other people is a big part of it.
Yeah, because I think the more people that do that, the world just be such a nicer place. Do so much more for others. And that doesn't have to be an everyday thing, but it can just be something that you're thinking about, like, okay, I'm doing this thing, I'm really good at this thing, I'm really good at organizing, okay, maybe I could put that into practice, maybe I could do that for someone else.
Thank you. Yeah, organizing I can do. Baking cakes, it wouldn't make anyone happier. They saw that, so it wouldn't really be an improvement. Oh, we've got a question here from Connor. This is exciting. It's not often I get someone with the same name as me. How do you know what to listen to online, is the question from Connor. I guess, as you were saying, there's so many different information sources.
Yeah.
How do you choose what to listen to and what to disregard?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Really good.
Yeah, that's something we talk about a lot, because we're on social media quite a lot with the work that we do. And obviously, like, there's a cacophony of voices and, you know, people talking about different issues, and it can be overwhelming. I think one of the things that we often will think about is, who is the person that we're listening to and what are their intentions? I think we have to remember that social media and a lot of these platforms are there for the purpose of making money, or trying to sell us things, or trying to get us to do certain things. So I think we need to always question, what are the people's intentions? What are they trying to do? So if somebody is talking about how great this particular drink is or something like that, you got to think, are they saying this because they're trying to sell me the drink? Like, are they in like a product contract with this company? And actually, so their intention is not thinking about whether this drink would be good for me or it's going to make me feel good. They're actually just trying to get me to buy it. So I think we've got to really think about, what are the intentions behind what the people are saying. And the second thing is, the action that they want me to take, or the thing that they want me to do, or the thing that they want me to read or believe, what is the impact of that on other people? So actually, if I do this thing, is it leading to the harm or leading to some sort of like prejudice against somebody else? And if the answer is yes, then we've got to think, are these good motives? If this is leading to harm of other people, then I think we have to make sure that we're always opening to questioning what people are doing. And that doesn't mean that we have to be negative all the time. No. But even people who we really admire, none of us are perfect human beings, right? None of us are right all the time. And so I think we've got to be fine about changing our mind about things and questioning things. And that's actually a really great skill to have, is to be able to say, do you know what, I thought that was really great, and now I've thought about it now and I'm not so sure, or I've talked about this with somebody else and got another perspective, and I'm going to weigh it up and I'm going to think a bit more about it. We don't always have to go in straight away and be like, yes, I 100% agree with them because I really like their music. Or yeah, I 100% agree with them because they dress really well. So it's having that critical thinking and being comfortable in questioning what people are saying and doing.
And as you say, sometimes taking the time to figure out, because I mean, what you were just saying made me think of some of the fashion choices I made when I was younger, and looking at the photos now. Yeah, I really wish that I'd thought a bit more about that. There we go. Oh, those trousers. I've got a question from Bahana in Manchester. They've asked, when did you first start writing?
Yeah,
it's different.
I think
for
it's different for each of us. So for me, it's only really been recently. I've written things before for school or like university, essays, those sort of things. But in terms of actually for books, so Being an Ally was the first one that I wrote, that we wrote. And then we also did an essay for another book called The Teenage Armageddon. So that's another young adult book. And then we did our adult book. And then we've just done our fourth book, which is another children's book that's coming out in July. So yeah, again, it's all quite recent, but yeah, I love it. And again, I never thought I'd say that. Literally, like 14-year-old me is going, I cannot believe you. But yeah, I really enjoy it. And I find it hard. I still find it hard because, like I say, because of my dyslexia, so I find it really hard for like to do spelling and grammar. That's difficult for me, but usually I get you to read things and I get you to check.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Exactly. So yeah, for me it's been quite recent, but I think it's different for you.
Yeah, I always loved English, and I teach drama, so I've always read a lot. And when I was younger, I used to write poetry. It was terrible.
Yeah,
I loved I've got a book somewhere full of my old poems. So that's what I used to do. And then I've written like a few parts for plays and things when I was at university and stuff. So have always really enjoyed writing, but I didn't ever think I would have anything that was published. And then a project that I'm doing, a personal project, is I'm writing a fiction. And that's like, I've had so much fun doing it. It's like, it's been like the greatest joy. So I think part of writing is just doing it and then seeing what you enjoy, because again, like Natalie said, I never thought that I would ever be saying that I'm writing a fiction, and so that's very new to me, but it's exciting, and I think trying new things is great. I think lockdown did that for a lot of us, probably.
It's such incredible advice to hear for young people who are watching this as well, that try different styles of writing, try different things. It might not stick for the first time, it might not work, but there's different ways you can go about it, and you'll eventually find something that hopefully works for you. If not straight away, then maybe in a few years' time. One question I always like asking on these is, everyone gets writer's block. Everyone has the periods where they're like, oh, I don't know what to say next. But people deal with it in slightly different ways. I mean, do you have what works for you? Is there any moment where you're like, I don't know what word I should use next in the sentence? And if so, what do you do? What do you do next to try and help unclog that blockage?
I think for me, there's a couple of things that I do. So I do like to read a lot. I run a book club as well, so I read a lot of kind of fiction, non-fiction. So I will always kind of, when we're writing, we'll tend to be reading a book on the side. So sometimes I get inspiration from kind of the books and authors that I read. So I think, okay, they did it like this, so they kind of went into it that way. Maybe I could come into it a different way. And then I think a practical way really for me is I just stop, because I'm like, there's nothing. I can't do it. So, and obviously that's quite hard if you're on a deadline, or, you know, something needs being quite quickly. But if I've got a bit more time, then I just allow myself to stop, have a break, you know, even if it's until the next day, or an hour or 20 minutes, just go for a walk, whatever it needs to be. And then what you find is normally when you come back to it, it's not as bad as you think it's been. It feels different. It feels very different, because I think for me, I get into a bit of a tunnel with things. So I'm like, okay, it's got to be like this. I've got to make sure, you know, it's got to say this. And then I come away from it, I come back and I'm like, I don't know why I was going down that tunnel, because actually it doesn't need to be that at all. It can be something completely different. So I think that would be my advice.
I'd agree. Walk away. Like, don't be afraid to walk away from it. It doesn't mean like you're going to lose your thread. And also, writing is a creative discipline. So actually, what are you doing to cultivate your own creativity? And so actually coming away from it and then just doing something you really enjoy, that, you know, sparks passion and that you just feel really full from, that can also help. Like, you need to fill your cup. So, you know, what are you doing to do that, so that when you come back, you're kind of re-energized? And the final thing, I guess, is that sometimes we go away to write. And that doesn't need to be like, you know, you book a holiday. Like, sometimes we'll just go to somebody else's house, like maybe a friend's gone away for the weekend and we'll use their flat, and it's like a new space. Sometimes we have booked places and gone away. I went to like a cabin a few months ago where it was just, you know, in the middle of nowhere basically. And what that does is it gives you space, because I think when you're at home or in your bedroom, and it could be the same like when you're revising or you're doing homework, you're distracted because you're in your surroundings. So when I'm at home, all I think about is I could be hoovering actually, or maybe I'll just get that little bit of ironing done. Whereas when you're in a new space, can you tell my mum? When you're in the new space, all of that's gone, because you're not going to go around and start just randomly cleaning somewhere that doesn't need cleaning. So it's like, you know, or you're distracted by your phone, for example. Well, when you go to the library, you're not really supposed to be on your phone, or you can't really chat because someone will come around and say, you know, can you keep the noise down? So think about the space that you're in. And that's not just for writing, that's just for, you know, if you want to get some revision done or some homework done, focused work, then I think changing your surroundings can help.
That's fantastic advice. Thank you both. We have another question. Now, this one, some of these have been sent in anonymously. So if the people watching recognize it as their question, thank you very much. One of them is, what's your favorite reason for writing? Which I guess connects to that a little bit of, sometimes you can find a different place, but is there a favorite reason that you have for writing?
I think mine is, and this is because as well, this is kind of more non-fiction, so I think it'd be different maybe if it was fiction, but for me, because of the books that we've kind of written, a lot of it is about like our lived experience and kind of personal things that have happened. Or so for me, I find it a really healing process to be able to put that on paper, and kind of get it out of my mind, and to be able to just write something down. And it's an incredible honor to then for people to be able to learn from those experiences as well. You know, it's kind of, I guess for me, it's like keeping a diary. You know, I used to write a diary all the time and put down my thoughts and my feelings, and that just really helped because it was all kind of in my head and I'm processing it, but to actually have it written down on paper, I'm sort of processing it as I'm writing. So I guess for me, that's how it feels, and that's sort of the experience that I get out of it.
Yeah, similar. I think maybe this one is more about reading, but for me it takes me to worlds and places that I'm not able to just access on a daily basis. And I think that's the power of literature, is in this kind of little, you know, book, or sometimes longer books, you know, you can just be transported to something that you just can't access in your day-to-day. I've just read a brilliant book, and it was set in like Hollywood in the 1950s, and I was just like, the whole time I was reading it, I read it in like 3 days. I just felt like I was in a completely different world. I was taken somewhere else, and it was such a beautiful experience. And I'm like, and this is through, you know, these words on the pages. I'm in my bedroom just reading in bed, and I'm somewhere else. And I think that's the power of it. So yeah, it is an honor to be able to do that. And also for people, when they've read your work and they say to you, and with the book, The Mixed Race Experience that we wrote, lots of people wrote to us or emailed us and said, you know, I feel so seen. You've told my story. I gave this to someone and now they understand me better, you know, and thank you for writing it. And that is incredibly humbling. So
amazing. It's incredible. Yeah, exactly what you say from your answers of, you can write and read for pleasure, you can write and read for well-being, you can write and read to be transported. There's so many different opportunities that you can get through it. It's one of the most wonderful things we can do. We have time for just one more question, I'm afraid. Sorry, the time has sped
by.
And so we have one which is again anonymous, and they've asked, as a teenager, who was an ally for you and why?
Great question. For me, I would say I had a couple. I'd say Naomi, you were one of them. And then I would say my mum. She was a brilliant ally. So our mum, as we said in the book, she's a white woman. And I experienced, I won't talk for both of us, so I'll talk for me, but I experienced a lot of racism, a lot of kind of ignorant comments, you know, things, some difficult experiences, and especially at school. But my mum, she was amazing, you know, and it was something that she didn't necessarily experience herself, but she knew that it was something that I was. So she was always there to kind of support me. She'd be down the school, as much as I hated her going down the school, but she'd be there talking to the teachers. Just don't go to the school. But you know, she'd be there saying, you know, talking to teachers, saying things weren't appropriate, that they shouldn't be saying certain things, you know. And so she was really, really supportive, and really had my back. And she was a safe person for me to talk to. And along with you, Nate, and you're older, so I guess even though maybe we didn't necessarily talk about it specifically at the time, but I think watching you and being like, okay, Naomi's also been through certain things, you know, but always knowing that you have my back as well, and you would always be supportive. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, I'd say the same. Like mum, she really like modeled that, not just for us, but I saw her doing it for other people as well. And she's an activist, so she's always protesting and, you know, doing all the things that kind of she's passed it down to us. So she's a, you know, massive inspiration. Yeah.
Amazing. And it's a lovely point to leave it on as well, that just like your mum, there's something that all of us can do, to make a difference as well.
And also I just want to say thank you to Shakira and Dana, who related the book, for asking us to contribute an essay. They're amazing. And yeah, we're really grateful that they asked us to be part of this piece.
Brilliant. Thank you. And I guess thank you from us to your publishers as well, DK, who've helped us have you here today. Thank you to World Book Day as well for getting involved, and a reminder to everyone who's watching that you can exchange your token for a free book at bookshops, or there are many books that are just £1 as well. And finally, a thank you to our wonderful authors as well. Thank you, Naomi and Natalie. It's been a wonderful, wonderful experience and a lovely day. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
You.
And yeah, see you.